To go back, and I don't ask you this earlier, we're going to go back into it. At the time of your son's death, prior to that, were you suspect of the government, or did it all come about after that?
Well, I've always, like I said earlier, I've always been suspicious of government and suspicious of authority. And I came to, you know, I grew up during the Vietnam War. It started well, it really started before I was born. And it was really hot when I was 10, 11, 12, and ended when I went into high school. But I sympathized with the people who were saying that it was wrong. I sympathized with the protesters, even though I was too young to be a protester. And then, of course, I studied the lies that got us into Vietnam. And then later on, when I was older, I studied the lies that got us into World War II, the lies that got us into World War I and the Spanish-American War. And so, and all of the covert and overt crimes we've been committing in South America, you know, since we've been a nation. So I was always highly suspicious of the government. I never really had a clue about how corrupt and how violent our government was until after my son was killed, though.
You looked into it, and it was an enlightening experience, like it is for any of us once we start looking into this. Were you surprised with the truth being on your side, the negativity that you received from not just the press, but the public itself?
Well, but I also got the same amount of support, you know, and so the support was very gratifying to me. But, you know, the negativity, I think, didn't come because what I was saying was wrong. I think people recognize that what I've been saying and what I've been saying all along is correct, that Iraq and Afghanistan are based on lies, that our troops never should have been there, that they should be home. You know, obviously that if they shouldn't have been there and if it's lies, then they should be home. So people couldn't really attack me on that, so they had to attack me. Because since I've run against Nancy Pelosi for Congress, I've worked in Congress, I, you know, had the opportunity to meet all the presidential candidates that were running, not while they were running, but before, talk to them and realize how the system of politics it's not a two-party system, it's a one-party system. People always tell me, Cindy, do you think we need a third party? And I always say, yeah, but let's not skip a second party. You know, first we need an alternative to the war party. That's what I call the Democrats and Republicans. And like I say in my book, you know, Myth America, the system of the robber class is the media, it's the government, it's the military-industrial complex, it's the bankers, it's Wall Street, it's the Federal Reserve, it's all of these, you know, institutions working together against us. And so that's why they started to attack me, because I finally figured out it wasn't all about George Bush, it was about the system, and the system wants to protect itself.
That was going to be my next question, the left-right paradigm, how they keep the American people successfully so divided, and you see how they get so excited when it comes election time and they pick their parties, and then with that in mind and then their control of the media, it's almost a perfect storm scenario to keep their agenda succeeding. Right. Your thoughts on that?
Well, for sure, during an election year, especially a presidential election year, we get, you know, like I said during my speech, Goldman candidate A Goldman Sachs candidate A running against Goldman Sachs candidate B. And, you know, half of the country believe in candidate A, the other half believes in candidate B, you know, against all reason. You know, because the candidates are not picked by us, they're picked by the system, they're picked by the corporations. What I said during my speech, they're picked by the Ayatollahs of America, and it's not the people of America who pick the candidates. So what I have observed is that whoever wins, whatever, you know, whichever Goldman Sachs candidate wins, we lose. The people of America lose, and the robber class wins. If you look at who donates to each party, it's the same exact people. sometimes one industry donates a little more to the Republican wing of the war party, and some industries donate a little bit more to the Democratic wing of the war party, but they cover their bets, so whatever happens, the robber class wins, and we in the robbed class lose.
With the American people coming out and being so outraged at, 2 million marched on Washington in 9/12, the government actually coming out and attacking the people involved in the Tea Party movements, 9/11 truthers, openly calling us the new terrorists. Actually a broad step, even for them, it seems, to attack us that drastically. Any surprise on your part, or you just see it as the next step of a police state in America?
Well, when there was actually an anti-war movement before Obama became president, we were called the same things by the right. And so it just depends on who's in power and who's doing the protesting and who's going to be calling the names and what names are going to be called. So I was called anti-American, I was called a terrorist, I was called a communist, I was called any name that they could think of, anti-patriotic, anti-American, whatever name they could think of to marginalize us and our message. So now that it's a so-called left-wing government in power, but we both know that it's not, it's just another corporate party in power, then different set of protesters are going to be called the same names by a different set of people.
Any surprise that, did you have any faith in Barack Obama, the campaigner, keeping any of his campaign promises? Any surprise on your behalf once he gets to be president? He reneges on practically every campaign promise he made, especially with regards to the war with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, of course. I never supported Barack Obama. I never supported any Democratic candidate. The only one that I would get behind at all would be Dennis Kucinich, but of course we know Dennis Kucinich, like Ron Paul on the right, speaks to contra the system, so they'll never get up that high, and they never even get a chance to be in the debates anyway. So the only promise that I see Barack Obama keeping is the one to send more troops to Afghanistan. You know, he promised 2 combat brigades a month would come out of Iraq once he became president. So far, none. And we just talked to a gentleman who's in the reserves, who was already there, has been back for years, getting called back, and he said he knows 3 brigades that are being called to go over there. So not only are they not coming home, they're still being deployed.
2 more questions for you. The financial collapse that we know was orchestrated is done by design. They're asking us to actually trust the ones that caused the collapse to fix the collapse.
Right.
Do you see this as the consolidation of financial powers and a move by the global elitist to move us a step forward into a one world government type situation?
Well, you know, I do know that when the G20 met in Pittsburgh, it's the 19 largest economies plus the European Union, there was a memo that went out from Obama's Treasury Department that said, we are going to create a new economic world order. And how could that be more clear?
Yeah.
You know, and what I think the G20 is doing, and you know, groups like that, is they actually declared that they were the global economic leaders. And I'm like, who voted for you? Who did we have any kind of, you know, referendum in the world that's going to declare you the global economic world leaders? No, you declared it yourself. You know what? I declare myself the global economic world leader. And I think that everybody should just start listening to what I say. So no, it's about consolidating more and more wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer people. And we see in America, here in the United States of America, that we are now number 3 in income disparity in the world. Number 1 is Hong Kong, number 2 is Singapore, and number 3 is the United States of America. We are rapidly becoming a third world country where all the wealth, you know, we know that at least 90% of the wealth is in the hands of 1 or 2% of our population, and then, you know, the rest of us have to share what's left over.